What's your best fire me? I freaking dare you moment from work. Worked at a cancer non-profit. Hired a lady who knew about us because her kid had cancer. Boss wanted me to fire her because she had to come in late or leave early to take her kid to chemo. I refused. Boss said she'd fire me if I didn't. I told her she could go right ahead. Our CEO said no way. I got fired from a non-profit helping veterans with PTSD because I needed time off to deal with PTSD. They chalked it up to being too small to have to conform with FMLA leave. Made me learn real fast everyone involved doesn't give a crap when it's real. I was in the military and was trying to take my vacation time before I lost the days. They denied my requests 4 different times and I hadn't had a day off in 3 months and I was working 12-16 hour shifts most days. I was beyond done. I was teaching some new guys part of the tasks for one job. Everything was fine. I went somewhere else in the hangar to do something else on the plane. This quality assurance guy that everyone knew was a pain came in. I did my stuff good and he never bothered me, so I didn't pay him any attention. He started talking to one of the new dudes. He then asked to talk to me and pulled me aside. He then asked me I hadn't told the new guy about some super obscure caution about water under a grate in the hangar floor. Something that had nothing to do with our job, so it didn't matter. He was just being a pain. I was over the job and him, so I told him, listen Sergeant QA, I've been denied my leave 4 separate times and I've been working for 3 months straight. So if you have a problem with the way I taught them, write me up. I don't give a F and you can stuff it up your too. Tell my boss I said that. It was a little extreme but I was pushed to the point. When I went back and I knew I was in deep because the guy walked out of my shop head's office and I got called right in. When I went in there, the shop head said, I heard what happened out there. Submit the days you want to take leave right now and I'll approve it for you. Then told me I could leave. That's all I heard about it. I was shocked. Nobody so far has given an example of when they did it and got fired, so I will, but some details are changed for privacy. I worked at a terrible retail boutique in college. Worked my way up to management. Their pay policies were illegal, and the idiot district director they hired staffed terribly. I worked open to close by myself multiple times. I finally locked up in the middle of the day to go take a break once. Got caught. Told if I did it again I'd be fired. Said stop staffing so crappy. They did it again. I locked up again and a customer called corporate. I was fired. Last laugh was on them because I threatened to sue them for violating employment law. Longer backstory not for here. Sure did. Class action. Multi-million-dollar settlement getting back lost wages for 1,000 plus employees across multiple states. Plus unemployment for me. Actually what led to a complete life change for me, and I wouldn't be as successful now had I just let them continue to abuse me. Short-term financial pain and scary when you don't know how you will afford food or how to pay bills. Made it through and definitely worth it. Not only for me but a lot of people benefited. Frick you PK, you piece of crap. You don't deserve to still be in business. I've been at the company a long time. Therefore I know both day and night shift duties in and out. Are well liked by our clients and in charge of training the new recruits. Most work for us up to 6-12 months before growing tired on the workload or finding that they can't handle the job or just wanted cash enough to study up for something else. Anyway, they are heavily dependent on me. My closest boss threatened to fire me for being home one day and drinking beer when I was supposed to be at work. 2 weeks prior I had agreed to do overtime, but I wanted a new schedule so I would not miss it. I got a new schedule, but she had forgotten to fill in that day on it. She blamed me for it anyway and said it was grounds for terminating my contract. I dared her to do it and see how long we could stay in business. Worked for an online marketing firm doing SEO reports and optimization. This was my first job, so I didn't understand the concept of start working slow so you have room to improve. Well, I was working at 100% and doing well. 1 week, my girlfriend of 4 years broke up with me and I was taking it roughly. I was kinda scatterbrained and slowed down a little bit. I told my boss this and he was like, okay, we'll try not to stay like this for long. So 3 days go by and I'm better and working 100% again. So like a week later he calls me in and says, I need you to do almost all of your coworkers' work because you're better at it than he is and he's gonna do something else now. Sure, I'll do my best but I can't make any promises I'll get it all done. So I'm now working 2 people's jobs in the time of one. I finish one in 3/4 of the work and then get called into his office. He's claiming I fricked him over and I slowed down for too long. So I say fire me then. I'm tired of doing all this extra crap and I promise you need me. Well, I got fired. 2 weeks later, he calls me up and asks me to come back. Says he can't do all of the work. I tell him good. Maybe you won't treat your employees like crap next time. Went out of business like a month later. That's a good but ending. A manager threatened to fire me because I wouldn't make some system changes that would have led the company very open to a cyber attack. I had recorded a phone call between the manager and I where I explained the risk and that we needed someone more senior to sign off on that risk before I would make the change. He swore at me and told me just to freaking do it, which was all captured on the recording. He didn't know I was recording. At the HR meeting where he was going to effectively fire me, I insisted on bringing representation and at the time the policy said I could bring whoever I wanted. So I chose his boss. The meeting starts, the manager cites insubordination etc and I just sat there. When they eventually said we are giving you formal notice, I just asked are you sure? He replied yes. My representative, his boss, at this point had said nothing. It was at this point I played the recording. I was asked to leave the room. I was called back 15 minutes later, apologized, given a pay rise and informed that the manager will no longer be working on this client site or any client site we supported. When I worked in environmental remediation I had a similar thing happen. My 22nd birthday I was working at a bookstore in the King of Prussia Mall. My college girlfriend of 4 years had broken up with me earlier that night. It was around 7-8 PM of a busy weekend night when I noticed a pretty awful smell. I glanced over at my manager working the other register and could tell he smelled it too. But we continued to power through a line of antsy customers. Once we cleared the line a woman came up to me red-faced and laughing in shock and embarrassment. She said she had walked into one of the aisles to find a girl about 8 years old taking a crap on the floor. I looked over at the manager who clearly had heard as well and said, "Dave, you can go ahead and fire me, but I'm not cleaning that up. I believe that feces counts as a biohazard and you legally need to be trained, have the correct equipment to clean it up." Not me but my dad. So he was delivering catering to an office one day and the receptionist obviously fricked up. She was yelling at him in front of her bosses saying that he was too late, on time with proof, and that the order was wrong when it wasn't. She was making such a big issue of it and then said she was going to report him to his manager and get him fired. So my dad said see if I care and gave her the number. She called and my dad picked up because he is not the manager but the owner. Everyone in that room was laughing at her. Sorry for formatting on mobile. I hate people who refute actual proof like that. I ordered IT for 12. You ordered it for 3. Here is the email you sent me. Here, see, it says 3 PM. No, you are still wrong somehow. Freaking infuriates me that people can just ignore evidence like that. Used to work at a liquor store with 2 extremely unreliable people who love drama. Both of them got into dong measuring contests with the manager and quit on the spot, leaving me and a skeleton crew to manage the rest of the crazy summer season. The rest of the crew spent a good portion of their shift sitting on pallets, doing coke in the bathroom and or drinking on the job. So I was the go-to employee suddenly, comparatively to the 2 drama queens. I was a very well-behaved employee, but I would sometimes take my tips and pop over to the coffee shop next door while on the clock. One time I stepped back into the store right as the manager came into the other entrance. I just stood there and looked at her. She kind of shrugged helplessly and let me do it for the rest of the summer. But as soon as the 22nd of September rolled around, she was like, frick that noise. Owner of the company was avoiding the meeting where I get my raise. I waited over 2 weeks. Finally told my supervisors I'm walking out the door if they don't fix this. They told me to go talk to him. I told them they were the supervisors and it was their job to do that, not mine. I'm in an understaffed position at a job that is very difficult to fill. If I left then the rest would have gone too. They knew that. I worked retail in college and was a really valuable employee because I worked in 3 departments including loss prevention, which was really hard to get good people. In one of my not LP shifts my dept had clean bathrooms and the closing duties rotation. I go in and clean the men's room and it's mostly fine. I go to clean the women's room and it looks like someone has literally thrown a crap grenade in the handicap stall. There's a line about 3 feet up the wall where everything below the line is covered in a fine layer of crap spray. I noped out of that. We had no special equipment, like not even gloves, and told the store manager he needed to hire someone. He went on a huge rant for 10 minutes and people gathered to watch him yell. At the end I told him I could get a job at any of the stores at this shopping center and I wasn't cleaning that up. Then I signed out and I left. I called in my manager the next day to check my schedule and everything was fine. Crap, bullet dodged I guess. Wasn't physically at work but it was on the phone. Day before my mom is feeling bad, calling me at work and giving me updates. I finally convince her she needs to go to the ER, and I tell her to stay put and that I will be there soon to take her. Of course, she insisted that I stay at work but whatever, that's my mom. I'm freaking taking her to the ER. BTW, mom has history of bad health and issues and whatnot. I tell my direct manager I'm leaving, and she's like fine whatever. Make up the hours. Fine. Next day and my mom is still not great but it's fine. I got to her meds, but they still need to run other tests. So I decide to stay home with her and take care of her and run errands. Medical related stuff. For her. I call out leaving a message with our customer service desk, but soon after I get a call from a manager of a different department. We'll call her CM, asking why I called out. I tell her I need to take care of my mom. CMO, what's wrong with her? I'm sure she'll be fine at home. Mia, no. I left early yesterday to take her to the ER, and she's still weak. CM continues to try and convince me my mom is fine, and I need to come in. I give in and tell her all the details. CM is unrelenting and finally finished with a cherry on top. I'm sure your mom would rather you have a job to come back to. Well no B, you don't know my mom. You don't know her health. You don't know anything. I know you're a mom, so that's surprising as heck for you to say. I hope your children find themselves in that situation with a crap manager, and I hope they use the same ideals you're preaching. I answered her with C, but I can go out and get another job. I can't go out and get another mom. I'm staying home today to take care of my mom. She said something about seeing me the next day in an attempt to end the convo and say bye, so I said yay, we'll see how she's doing, said goodbye and hung up. Felt great cause I'm normally a pushover, but not when it comes to my mom. I held firm and kept my composure, so she couldn't really say I was rude or anything either, but she was pissed. I loved reading this one. I'd also do anything for my mom. Great on you for standing up for yourself. 3. I was working in the service industry and one of my customers ordered something that had since been reworked on the menu. I could tell he didn't like it but didn't want to complain. I told my manager exactly that and she got mad at me because he didn't actually complain. She yelled at me about how I couldn't know what he was thinking. So I asked her to just go talk to the guy and if I was wrong she could fire me. You'll never guess exactly what the guy said to her. She didn't look me in the eye for over a month. This was the second time something like this happened with her. I brought a PowerPoint into my last job's performance review that basically ended with I know how much I'm worth. Either pay me more crap or find some other butthole to do all of the work of 5 people. I intended for it to come off as a half joke because me and my boss were pals, but he thought it made sense so he fought to get me a raise. I was asked whether I put my barista job first in my life before anything else, including relationships, family, education, during an argument with the cafe owner after asking for 1 hour off my 10-hour day, 55h weeks W, only 1 30 minutes break, to go to a meeting. I responded with no, because, OBV, and he yelled at me saying I don't deserve the job, I have no work ethic, despite going above and beyond to fix his mistakes and being the only reason half the customers stayed. I'm stupid for being religious, and that I signed a contract to devote my life. Not kidding. He said that, to this job. He finished by saying other people would love to have this job if you're not going to take it seriously. I didn't say it, but I should have right then said fire me. I freaking dare you. I worked for a printing company. Most of an entire branch of production hinges off my area. I regularly did everything asked of me and above. Each year they'd pile on more with the promise of a raise. 4 years went by and no raise. I put my foot down and said I'd need a raise to make up for the last 4 years. No back pay, no nothing. Just the raise. And if the answer was no, then consider it my 2 weeks notice. They denied the raise and I left 2 weeks later. Within the year the entire department went under and 2 years later the company went out of business. I feel bad for the other workers that lost their source of income, but the owner can go frick himself. The director accidentally sent out the spreadsheet with all the salaries and bonuses to the whole department. I confronted him about it. I wondered why the guy next to me was making less fab. I was at a higher pay grade and the super lazy woman who spent at least an hour a day on the phone got a huge bonus. He said if you don't like it, quit. I said, good luck firing me. Thankfully we had a union of sorts. Took them 2 years and a huge severance package to get me to leave. Basically after that I lost heart and just did the bare minimum. I know people there who, after 17 years of really working hard, are only 1 or 2 pay grades above where they were when they started. The director is now a senior VP. Job mobility was only possible in the higher up areas. The stock grants are huge for people above director and super small for anyone lower than they were. Worked for a company that measured your dependability, some ratio of how much you were out of office planned versus unplanned. I had been with the firm for about 3 months and get called into my manager's office. They have the policy up on the screen and present it to me like it is a life-threatening issue. I reply, look, I have 2 children under the age of 5. Stuff happens beyond my control. I don't really care about some antiquated policy that should be used to measure machines, not people. In addition, I'm here because I want to, not because I need to. But thanks for letting me know about this policy. I feel better knowing. Manager looks at me and just goes okay then. Company got rid of the policy 2 months later. I posted the story on another AskReddit about calling my manager a C and walking out. Her higher up called me in and I decided to at least give my side of the story the next day. It became evident she didn't care much, so I told them it didn't matter and I quit anyway. In the best reversal of a classic movie line, the supervisor said you can't quit because you're fired, literally as I was walking out. My co-worker about a year ago. He worked the pizza station at our restaurant and was a good worker. He was just about the only one left that rolled and made good pizza, but he was a huge stoner and always showed up high. My sous chef always thought he was doing lower quality work than everyone else because of appearances with that, but he was a great worker. One day he had forgotten to wrap some pizzas and they spoiled, and my boss really felt like going off. He yelled at him for a long time and then told him he was fired. My co-worker just looked him in the face and said you can't even fire me, and just kept working for the rest of his shift. The next day, sous chef walks up with his boss, our department head. She listens to the entire story, says to remember to wrap the pizzas, and walks away. I thought it was the funniest crap because if he'd accepted it and just gone home, he'd have definitely stayed fired. He just said no to getting fired and worked another year there. Worked as a chef for the last year. Left a place due to college as the hours were way too much, 40+ hours a week, and put that on top of full-time uni, didn't have any time off. Friend recommended a place that was closer to home than most other restaurants, so applied and got the job within a few hours. Not too weird where I'm from, as not a lot of properly trained chefs and always new businesses opening. I knew immediately that I wasn't staying the second I walked in. It was like something off Kitchen Nightmares. Fridges stank and were clearly improperly stacked, so dangerous to boot. The head chef I was supposed to work under greeted me and showed me round the dingy small kitchen. His whites were stained and filthy, and given this was 8 AM clearly weren't washed in I don't know how long. Grease and dirt everywhere with no ventilation and broken equipment. So he shows me the menu and with no explanation or description of how to do certain tasks, like spice mixes for example, tells me to do the meats for lunch. I get to the meat fridge and see at least half the meat is off, so I call him over to show Hein the green slimy pork and beef rotting in its own blood. His face changed immediately and stated bluntly, "It's fine. Slice it down and no one will notice." Obviously I refused and went and grabbed a bin. He grabbed me by the arm and pulled me back. "You throw that out, you're fired. You're not wasting that." I simply went, picked up my knives, toolbox and car keys and walked out. Got a call from the manager berating me for leaving and how disappointed she was for hiring me. I told her the problems I found and I wasn't in the business of attempted murder and hung up. Called THE Environmental Health Office. Here in Northern Ireland, if a chef calls, they are generally down in a few hours. Asked me to meet them there and show them the problems. I have never seen a place get shut down as fast in my life. Within half an hour she had a written document of closure and had to testify in court due to reckless endangerment charges as well as a litany of other illegal infractions. Working at an important political building. Been there for about a year. Other employees have been there for decades. 99% of the staff is black, including myself. None of us have ever been written up. New manager shows up. An older white lady with a complex, and starts berating people for not doing their jobs, when they are very clearly doing their jobs as the job is defined. She berates people until they backtalk, then fires them for insubordination. She fires 10 out of 13 people, all black, and replaces them with white workers. She approaches me and begins berating me. I am onto what she is doing. I do not react. My lack of reaction leads her to tell me I'm being insubordinate, and I'm fired. That was my I freaking dare you moment. Although I did not say it, she fired me. 6 months later, she's been fired. Her supervisor is fired, and his supervisor has been demoted to the worst position a supervisor can have. A lawsuit has been filed that resulted in about $100,000 in damages to the victims. Bet she won't do that crap again. Bet you she will. Ha ha ha. I'm an electrician. Boss son said my clothes are too dirty to wear to work. Told him these clothes were clean when I first wore them to work. Told him buy me new ones or fire me. That was a year ago. Still wearing the same PVC glue stained clothes to work. In a previous job, working in IT support, we randomly had to ask people to go through to a feedback line and leave a voicemail about how the service was, etc. Generally, it doesn't sound all that bad, but when you factor in people call you to fix their computer and or don't care, plus the fact our company was very much about look at all this good feedback, when nobody in their right mind would put through a person who's had the worst time on the phone, it came across a bit sales-like, so I refused to do it. In terms of fixing things, my numbers were high and I did my job with a smile. I told the bosses my concerns ray the above, but was flatly told, if I didn't do it, A, I was the only one refusing and B, I would be fired. After a few weeks of crapping myself, I thought frick this, I know what is right and what is wrong here. I'm not doing it. If I get fired, they'll lose somebody on the floor who does a high amount of actual work, so frick them. Several months later and A, I wasn't the only person not doing it like they'd said and B, nobody got fired about it. They just wanted some stupid figures to show the customer how awesome we are. Despite that not entirely being accurate, it eventually came to a head when I went into a promotion interview. I was told by my boss your fixing figures are good, but this feedback thing is going to be held against you, and you won't be getting this job if you apply for it. I told her that I'd wait and see, because I again think she is incorrect. I took the interview. It was done by people from outside the office, thank God, and I was offered the job, and took it. I still had to work in the same office, but moved away from that end of the work and got a pay rise. My boss congratulated me afterwards, and I never felt so good. I was 1 out of 3 dishwashers for a hotel and restaurant, so there was a lot of work for us. One of the guys never did any work, and the other guy only worked early morning shifts as he had multiple jobs. I finished all my duties, walked outside for a smoke break. Manager of the restaurant area came out and threatened to fire me if I didn't go back inside right then and finish the dishes. I told him what his predicament would be if he fired me. He stormed off. Came back in 10 minutes later and there were maybe 3 dishes to do, and I was the only one working then, so there was no way another dishwasher did them. I have a couple stories about this guy, most from other people's experience while working for him. Boss promised me a raise for October. When I brought it up before payday he denied having doing so, and also told me he is not getting his money's worth out of the work I do. Told him he doesn't pay me enough for it to be worth my time and gave notice. I was working in a cafe and I was on my own from 2 till 10 PM, and what made it better was that there was one chef in the kitchen and he was a temp chef, so he didn't know the menu. Now we have something called kids time about 5-7 where there should be 2 servers and 2 chefs, but the duty manager was on reception all day because that person was ill. As a result, I decided to print up a little sign telling people service was going to be slow. During mid-kids time there was a table of 8 people and I was mid taking their food out and there was a wrong order, so I had to take this back to the kitchen. There was this lady waiting at the till and I was very apologetic every time I walked past her cause food takes priority. When I finally get to her she orders a soya cappuccino. We have run out of soya. I can do skinny instead. She then says, I'm sorry you have me waiting her for 5 minutes just to tell me you don't have the product. At this point I was so mentally tired of doing 3 people's jobs in one, I said without thinking, look, I get paid minimum wage for this and I have currently trying to do 3 people's freaking jobs at once during our busiest time of day. Give me a freaking break. If you want your coffee I will make you a skinny one, but we don't have soya. Please just leave if you don't want to buy from here, it would make my life easier. Now she played the good old card of I want to talk to the manager, so I point her in the direction of the reception, but just knowing my luck as she was complaining. The DM, who is chill, the general manager of the whole club, comes at the end of his shift. It is a go. He comes over to me and says, OP, did you really swear at a customer? Of course I did. I don't regret it. I'm going to need you to come in during your day off for a review. I explain I have holiday that day so I am away. He tells me I need to go to it. This is the final straw because I was going to university in 2 weeks. I had enough. I said don't worry, no need, because today will be my last day. No it won't be, you need to give 1 week's notice. Me. And you need to properly staff your department, so now you have no staff. Take off my apron and badge. Put it on the counter, grab my phone and coat and leave. Most empower I have ever felt at that job, so happy I left when I did. I used to work in a casino with rotas that changed weekly. I saw that I had 4 days on and 3 days off, which is fine. Standard. On my second day off I got a call from one of the pit bosses frantically saying, where are you? You were supposed to be in 15 minutes ago. I said no I wasn't. He can check the rota. I even had a picture of it as my phone screensaver. Well, I went in anyway because I know that my absence means the other staff would have no breaks in a 12-hour shift. And when I arrived, said pit boss was waiting with the other pit bosses and the managers, and he had a massive go at me in front of all the staff and customers, making me look like a real dong. So I showed him the picture on my phone and he said you should have called to check the rota hadn't changed. I was like, are you saying I should call every time it's my day off? And he said yes. So I said what's the point of making a rota if I have to call every day off to check if it hasn't changed? And he said I was being extremely rude to him in front of our bosses and I should apologize. I said okay, I'm sorry that you freaked up and are trying to make me look bad. Then I walked off and went to smoke because I was seething. Later, I came back in and nothing happened. A different boss just told me to start my shift when I was ready. Not a great story, but I had put in for my last day, sous chef, a whole month in advance, and my last day was here. That was when the owner decided to ask me to work longer until he found someone else. I agreed. I was to leave at 10 o'clock, and both bosses said that was fine. 10 comes around. I am literally walking out the door, and they both start yelling at me for being inconsiderate and leaving a huge mess. I absolutely did not, and threatened to fire me, saying this is unacceptable. I am not okay with this. This can't happen again, and so on. I just laughed and left and didn't come back. Get out of here, bro. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.